Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama. Welcome to our channel, Paws On Animation.
Today we're covering the Mecha Anime Geass, Lelouch the Rebellion.
And this incredibly twisty anime follows Lelouch Lamprouge, whose mission is to wipe out the royal family of Britannia in an attempt to end the war. Now, however, he's secretly Britannian himself.
And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the key buddies on future podcasts and multiple videos.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us for this podcast. This is one I had really wanted to see for a very long time.
Yes.
I had seen so much about it on Twitter, knew that he was voiced by Johnny Young Bosch, really wanted to see it, and this anime did not disappoint.
Right. And we ended up seeing almost the entire thing on Netflix.
Absolutely.
And right up to the last day it was there, we had been binge watching pretty much. And then on the last day we had 5 left and we got to the final episode. Netflix timed out and stopped anybody from trying to finish the series before midnight and kicked out. So we ended up trying to see the final episode on YouTube, and they immediately put up the spoiler next to the video just to screw with you. And it's like, why are you doing this? All this avoid spoilers, and they still managed to do it.
Yes, but it was a really fun watch. Personally, the ending for me was sad. I've seen lots of people on Twitter, online, who say they love the ending, but I had hoped for a happier ending.
Right.
So briefly, for those of you who are familiar with Geass, Lelouch the Rebellion, it's an anime with a ton of light novels and mangas and other anime series, but the one we watched specifically is Lelouch the Rebellion. It was produced by Sunrise, created by Goro Taniguchi, and written by Ichiro Okauchi.
Mm-hmm.
And it's set in an alternate universe, an alternate timeline. And it follows, as we mentioned, Lelouch de Britannia, who obtains the power of absolute obedience from a mysterious woman named Cece.
Mm-hmm.
And using his supernatural power known as the Geass, he leads a rebellion against the ruler of the Holy Britannian Empire, commanding a series of mecha battles.
Yes. And we can see that for the time this was out, clearly mecha animes were really big, especially when you had Gundam and Neon Genesis Evangelion, like starting it all, and then clearly it lasted all the way through the early 2000s, was having these really long arcs about war and political power and rebellion and all that. Clearly these were really anime that were big back then in terms of action and story.
Definitely. Now, this particular anime takes place in an alternate timeline. The world's divided into 3 superpowers, similar to 1984 by George Orwell. You have the Holy Britannian Empire, which includes the Americas, which is called Britannia here, the Chinese Federation, Asia, and the Europa United, which is a combination of Europe and Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Takes place after the Holy Britannian Empire's conquest of Japan on August 10th, 2010. And in this anime, the Japanese are referred to as 11s,
Mm-hmm.
and the citizens are referred to this. They're referred to as 11s, and the country has been renamed Area 11.
Right.
And it's really weird when you're watching it, trying to keep everything separate.
Right.
And make sense of why they're hating each other and why these things are happening. But the point of the divergence for this timeline appears to be that during the reign of Elizabeth I, though the queen remained unmarried, she bore a son, the fictional ancestor of the Britannian emperors, Henry IX.
So they pretty much made up their own timeline and descendants with this other outcome. So it's like an alternate universe, pretty much.
Yes. And in here, Lelouch has been exiled. He goes by the name Britannia.
Mm-hmm.
And you find out later during the series that he has another name and he's actually royalty.
Right.
And he's a very unique character based on all the other anime we've seen.
Right.
Not only does this anime have a distinctive look, it's similar to other anime styles that were around during the 2010s.
Right.
But these characters and their clothing and designs are very distinct from anything else that's out there.
Right.
As soon as you see it, you know it's Lelouch.
Right.
And, or I should say Geass. And they had a stellar cast of voice actors voicing these characters Johnny Young Bosch, Monica Rial.
Yuri Lowenthal.
Yes.
Stephanie Shea. And many, many others. And there were times where they brought in new people. And other times they just had the regular cast do multiple voices.
Laura Bailey, Kate Higgins,
Liam O'Brien.
Yes, there were just so many. And speaking of Liam O'Brien, we definitely got to mention this little tidbit before we finish.
Mm-hmm.
But the cast was stellar, and they managed to create this alternate universe that seemed like it was really different. Sometimes this happens where, you know, it's in comics or television, they create these alternate universes and it kind of doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
You see that they're really trying hard, but here it worked, and it really seemed like it was a legitimate alternate universe. They didn't make mistakes and reference things in our timeline or our universe. It was totally different. The only thing they kept referencing the Rascal Love was
Pizza Hut. Yes. These, I guess, is inferred that all of these stores manage to still exist despite this dictatorship they have. And one of the biggest stores they seem to really love is Pizza Hut. And it's not like they do like a parody of it, like they call it Pizza House or Pizza Shack or something, and as you know, it's a parody. They actually, it's legitimately the brand Pizza Hut in there, and almost every episode they're eating that, and they like, and they love having the, go ahead.
So they eat nothing but Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
You see no other food.
They really are America's.
Just Pizza Hut.
And the one they seem to really like to get, and with the time it was out, was the one where it had the little stuffed crust. Part of it had a hot dog in it, and part of it had cheese. Those seem to be the two that they love to eat the most. It's like, how much do you spend on pizza every week?
Yet everyone's very svelte and thin.
There are no heavy-set characters in this show whatsoever.
And no one had acne.
Right. It's like, how is this possible? This is one of my favorite things in here.
Well, that was one of the standout things that only made you think of our universe was the Pizza Hut boxes constantly popping up throughout this entire anime. We saw seasons 1 through 2, so we completed the series. And the characters were quirky, to say the least, especially Lelouch.
Yes.
And then you had to balance him, Suzuku, voiced by Yuri Lowenthal. And they were, I don't know if they were best friends, they were friends.
Yeah, I think they were friends, and then, well, they were friends, and didn't know they were enemies until much later.
Right. And they were opposites. Where Lelouch would take a chance doing anything, all for his cause, anything was game. Suzuku was supposedly the moral compass. So we thought, until later on, you learned about, and if you haven't seen it, there's a lot of spoilers in here.
Yeah.
Until you learn about he killed his own father.
Right.
And then things change for you watching this character and watching this anime. And that's another thing that really was a standout. Before it became commonplace and tropey like it is now to have plot twists.
Right.
This anime had plot twist after plot twist. And
very
you
twisty.
didn't see 90% of them coming. They were
very twisty.
very
like,
surprising.
Like Pikachu, very
like,
twisty.
whoa, and where did that come from? And oh my gosh. And you didn't see it coming. I really love that you couldn't figure out what was going on in this anime.
Yes. And I love the fact that there weren't too many clues and things where you would figure it out or they make it obvious, and we didn't see a bunch of things online where we would get spoiled, of course, because it's an older anime. But it was nice to kind of have that feeling again up until the last episode where they immediately put a spoiler that you didn't know what was going to happen. You weren't seeing spoilers. There wasn't a potential to see information right before you see it. And it was like the old days, pretty much, when you watch these shows and you can just watch and enjoy and get invested in the story. Because as it goes on, it gets rougher and rougher. In season 2, you're thinking it's almost like a reset. Because it seemed like it almost started over. But then you see it's sort of a facade, and then it starts going back to craziness as it goes on. And it's like it never ends.
And there were some episodes that were so good based on these plot twists. And we said we were going to remember it. And I don't recall it, but in this episode...
Okay, you're talking about what happened with Lelouch's other persona, right? The Zero?
I'm talking about what happened where he had used the Geass on himself.
Oh, episode 12.
Yes, that was one of the best episodes ever this entire series. Like, oh my gosh. You didn't see it coming. You didn't figure it out. And I remember going, that was so good. We have to watch that again.
Yeah.
And the plot twist at the end was like, it was just as impressive as he's worthy for Captain America.
Right.
It was that good.
Right.
And I think that's another standout about this anime. There were so many great episodes. There was so much in here that during the time it came out, and still some to this day, were groundbreaking, had been done. Just wow moments.
Right.
So many wow moments.
Right. And there was one thing Mama had noticed this, and then she told me, is that the two of the voice actors, Yuri Lowenthal and Liam O'Brien, ironically enough, will end up being another anime later. And for Lelouch, when he wants to be the rebellious type figure for the 11s, he becomes Zero. And he kind of reminds you of Mysterio in a way, but less annoying. And Vaughn had pointed this out of what Zero was supposed to be for. And what was hilarious is that all this talk about true justice and everything.
Yes.
And true justice, and he would fight for their freedom and everything, and then...
I said, oh my gosh, Tiger and Bunny? You know who that is?
Yes.
Remember, you're like, what? Who is? I said, do you know what character this is?
Yeah, and you said
like,
it was Lunatic.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's where it came from. And both Liam O'Brien, Yuri Lowenthal, as you mentioned, are in Tiger and Bunny, but clearly, Lunatic is Lelouch.
Yes.
Absolutely, positively Lelouch.
It was almost like foreshadowing for Tiger and Bunny years later.
The same type of clothing, the mask on the face, and then you alerted me to the hand that takes a note from the backstory of Lunatic.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Lelouch. And you could tell that's what Liam got his inspiration from in voicing the character. How he spoke, how he talked, the mannerisms that were attributed to the character when he was animated.
Yes.
It's like, oh my gosh. And then to have Yuri Lowenthal voicing Bunny.
Yes.
And then you pointed out that in one episode, you think there was a reference to their connection in Code Geass.
Yes.
With one line that was made in one episode that they were in together.
Yes, and it had to do with how the suit works and the persona. It was how the suit works and the persona, because they had a character Liam O'Brien voice, and it's almost the same voice he uses in Tiger and Bunny. And there was an interaction with them where, well, what was his name again? Yorichi? Suzuki? Or Suzaku, when he's in the suit, and it'll be at times he becomes like a different person. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like Lunatic when he becomes a different person when he's in the suit. Mm-hmm. And they have a lot of interactions together, so it was kind of like ironic that they would be playing hero and villain later on.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, definitely when they were cast for Tiger and Bunny, they absolutely positively were looking to and referencing Code Geass. And that was like one of those little tidbits. Maybe people who have watched both animes already knew this, mm-hmm. but we didn't, and it was like for us it was finding
right.
It was
finding Easter egg, really.
Yeah, you could say that. It was like for me finding a jewel. It's like a hidden gem.
All
oh
right.
my gosh. And every time you heard Liam O'Brien speak, and he wasn't, his character, I should say, wasn't in that many episodes, mm-hmm. but he was very memorable for the character
right.
that he played, just as for Lunatic.
Right. And The whole story, like I said, both seasons, they managed to keep you
And his
engaged.
character was named Mao. And
Yes.
Mao was a mess.
It was everything.
Oh my gosh.
And
the name of the episode that I was talking about is Geass versus Geass, episode 14.
That's
and
it.
one
Okay.
of the best episodes in this entire series. So good. Had to watch it twice in a row.
Yes, that was it. And yeah, you're right. He was a mess to the point where they didn't even know what he was into because he was just like all over the place, very lax. He sounded kind of almost lazy at certain points, and his assistant clearly was into him, but thinking it was gonna happen. It was like, what is it with you again? he was an enigma in himself.
Definitely. And it has still a fan base all these years later, and you can see why, you can understand why. It is one of the best anime. And for us, not having seen a lot of mecha anime right now, this is the pinnacle for me, #1 in mecha anime.
Right.
And I'm sure for those of you who watch more, you can name others. Of course, Gurren Lagann is up there too.
Right.
But I think for me, Code Geass inches it out because of the plot twist, because of the intensity, because it was just crazy from beginning to end. You rarely had calm moments, and when you did, it was when Lelouch was pretending to be Lelouch,
right,
just a regular old student, and his life was boring, nothing was happening.
Right.
But it was all facade.
Right.
So it was still being crazy because these people were thinking, oh, Lelouch, and he's her friend, and all the girls wanted
literally
Lelouch. Yeah.
Literally, there's one point where somehow he ended up having a date with every single girl at the school.
108 girls.
Every single one. And I was
Their
like,
maid pretended to be him.
Yeah.
And she ended up making dates with every girl that asked to go out. So he ended up having 108 dates.
Yeah, and it was like, are the guys at your school so lackluster where every single one you're willing to date one boy and no one else because they're not good enough? It's like, you need help. If they were 100, they're like, no, forget it. I don't even want to wait in line, forget it. And they actually did have, amongst all of the craziness, the violence, the war, and everything, they had 2 fun episodes both seasons. One episode was when the cat got Lucius' helmet from when he's 0 and he chased the cat all over the school and everything, and that ended up being a comedy episode before Crap at the Fan. And the second will be when they had their festival. That's, of course, their festival.
There's always a festival and a beach episode in anime.
Yep, and they have both. So their beach festival episode, basically, where a competition that whoever won got to kiss Lelouch. Of course, every girl wanted to win that. And I was like, do you not date in this dang school? So, amidst all that, they're actually really good at writing great humor amidst all of the war and the tragedy and all that. You did have lots of levity. And if it wasn't that, you have pizza there too.
Definitely.
So I might want to watch this while eating pizza. It's going to make you crave it at some point.
Absolutely. And I want to say that this anime was very high in violence, in betrayal, in backstabbing.
It might as well have been live action.
Yes. And for those of you who maybe that's not something you want to see, I would have to say Code Geass would not be the anime for you to watch.
Right.
Because it is filled with these concepts and these different actions taking place. And some of them are just horrific in terms of who's doing the backstabbing, whom ends up being killed. And Lelouch does a lot of killing.
Yeah, and it's not like in furs. Sometimes it's on screen, sometimes it's off screen. They get blown up and things, and it's a mess. And there are points in some of the characters that are in there for a little while, whether it be short or long term, they're taken out too.
Yeah.
And so you don't know who expects gonna make it or not. And one character in particular we surprised made it through was actually
not only
and one of these Britannian people, and they kept calling him Orange Boy. What about Orange? And it's like, drove this man crazy. He was being a respected crazy leader, and he drove him insane. All because he implanted something like, what about Project Orange? And they're like, what is Orange? I don't know.
Yeah. And then he ended up being upgraded like Shiro.
Yeah.
And given a Geass. And then there was one point that it was like all his talking, and I ended up
like
saying
20
something I
minutes.
didn't expect.
And he's going on about how he loved the royal family, he'd be loyal to them and everything, and his tragedy and all that, like a soap opera. And then Mama said, "Oh, will you stop? You sound like you talk like you're made of flowers."
And it never stopped. The entire anime, it never stopped. And when we found out Lelouch was really not Lamprouge, but Britannia, and he was the royal family, then he switched sides and started sided with Lelouch, and it's like, can you make up your mind?
Right.
This character was just all over the place.
Right.
And the one person that he said he was doing all this for, not only his sister, ended up betraying him.
Right.
That was a disappointment for me.
Yeah.
And the ending was a disappointment. Again, spoilers, if you've never seen it, you might want to skip over this. But I wanted, despite all the things that had happened, I wanted there to be a semi-happy ending, or something went right for Lelouch.
Right.
And to me, him being murdered and asking to be murdered was not a happy ending.
No. And I think people liked the ending because it was more philosophical. He paid for his crimes. He knew there was no redemption, so they saw that as something more like reality-based. And I think that's why it's love. They took the realistic way out instead of making up something.
But Suzaku had killed his own father.
Right.
And had ended up doing some things. And no, they weren't on the level of Lelouch, but still.
Right.
In this anime, that's one thing I'm glad you mentioned that I want to point out. Really, no one was innocent in here. Even Nunnally ended up not being innocent.
Yeah.
Later on. You thought she was, and then...
Clearly they wanted like a gray area type
right.
morality thing. It was, your thing is a good and an evil, but then the bad people make good choices and the good people make bad choices. So
yes.
clearly they wanted to be, there was no good or evil. There was just... the ends make the means,
right.
Gray area, just want the war to be over no matter what.
Absolutely. And that came across in this anime. The music also was outstanding, especially the ones that accompanied the action. This is just a stellar anime. If you are into mecha, if you love plot twists that aren't contrived and overused and that are really different, excellent voice actors, and even if it's an older anime, during the time this was made, the animation was great. Unique looking characters, a great storyline, fun mixed in. Pizza Hut.
Right.
Then
Brought to you by Pizza Hut.
Is for you. Lelouch the Rebellion is for you. It's 2 seasons. And I think there were 23 episodes each.
24 actually.
Episodes each. So it's a long watch, but it's worth every single episode. There's nothing like this you're gonna watch. Like Lelouch
really nothing.
Rebellion. And if you are a lover of anime, you owe it to yourself to watch this anime.
Yeah.
I was not disappointed in seeing it. I heard so many great things, seeing things. And actually, I bought almost the entire first season unseen, used at half-price books so you can still get deals. For some reason, they were selling these for $2 a piece, each of the volumes. So I got all but 2 of the first season for $2 each, and I was so excited. And unfortunately, it took me years to finally watch it, but I'm proud of having made that purchase, especially now if you go to half-price books, it probably costs $400.
Right.
But this is definitely an anime you want to watch.
Right.
Who would you say is your favorite character, and why do you think they should invest the time in watching Code Geass: Lelouch the Rebellion?
Okay, so it's hard to pick a favorite because, like we said, the morality thing is pretty much gray area, so everyone's doing things they think are right, both sides. So I think amongst it all, I think probably Suzaku. I think he would be a favorite, not just because it's Yuri Lowenthal. Not just because it's Yuri Lowenthal, but he had probably the second most interesting character arc and that his hands weren't completely clean, but he wasn't completely evil either.
Right.
He was just he's thinking, winning the war and everything would be a way to make up for what he did, because he did feel guilty, and at least he has some sense of morality left in him, unlike Lelouch pretty much. So I think for me it would be him.
I think both of them were my favorites, but somehow I like Lelouch more. Go figure. For me, he's not the typical type of character that I would gravitate toward.
Right.
But for this one, Lelouch is a badass character.
Yeah.
And until it got toward the end, you kind of was seeing what he was working toward. But once it got to season 2, and you got maybe a third of the way through, it was kind of like, this is not going to end well.
Right.
But again, I still didn't expect the ending that we got.
Right.
So if you've seen Code Geass, Lelouch of the Rebellion, let us know what you think in the comments below. Did you watch it when it originally came out? Or are you seeing it a decade or more later as we are? We really want to know, did you like Lelouch? Did you care for the ending? We really want to know what you think.
Right. And if you haven't already, subscribe for updates, weekly videos of your favorite anime series, anime shows, and all things animation.
Absolutely. And let us know, did you figure out that tidbit about Leon O'Brien being lunatic and lunatic being inspired by
Zero.
Code Geass?
Yeah.
Let us know what you think.
So, thank you so much for watching. I'm Mask Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.
And this podcast is brought to you by Pizza Hut.